Welcome back to the Panjwai Podcast Season 2. We appreciate everybody tuning back in, and we're going to keep telling this story and keep on going with the podcast, and really excited to bring you guys a little bit something new in Season 2. So, Curtis, what we got going on, man?
So whereas Season 1, we focused pretty narrowly on our deployment on Spurwangar and kind of the events that immediately surrounded that, we're going to start branching out in Season 2, which I'm really excited to start doing, and telling, not only stories of other units that were there the same time that we were, or even close to when we were there, but Canadians that were there way before us, some of the American forces that helped see Spurwangar. Our first story, very important to the history of Panjwai. So while there's still a lot of Spurwangar stories in Season 2, because it's our podcast and we can do that, it's actually about 50-50 other people's stories, and we're really excited to hear those stories. And so far we've recorded like 10 episodes, and it's been super rewarding to hear those.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been good to get a sense of other people's experience outside of our AO, but also outside of the timeline we were there, and a lot of these people actually started reaching out to us very early on, especially like the Canadians and stuff like that. And it was a kind of a surprise to see how eager the Canadians were to hear our story. But more importantly, they were like, this is like somebody's doing something about Panjwai. So it was cool to be able to kind of bring that into the fold and develop that into the vision here. Because we really wanted to expand the scope and just kind of start getting a little bit wider perspective on things. And I think Season 2 is setting us up to do that while also maintaining that current of Bravo company.
Yeah. And, it was actually kind of disheartening at times in Season 1 to hear all these stories that we wanted to tell from other units. We're like, no, we're really committed to Season 1 just being about Bravo company. And it was super exciting once we were finally able to greenlight doing some of these new interviews. Which we even started doing some of these interviews while Season 1 was still ongoing. So we were excited to start talking to these people. I think everyone is going to be really excited to hear these stories. And we hope that through the course of telling other stories of other units and other eras and other places of Panjwai, that the picture of what it was like to fight in Panjwai becomes more complete. And that more listeners that listen to the podcast can feel like their experience has been represented as well.
Yeah, and that's been a kind of core objective from the beginning anyways. I mean, if you go back and look at their original kind of mission statement, essentially, that was a long-term vision for us, was to get that larger, more encompassing perspective. And the diverse range of guests that we have in Season 2 is really starting to help us do that more than I anticipated, just to be honest with you. So I'm really excited about that. And of course, we start the season off on a kind of interesting foot. It's essentially... the story that we begin with is essentially the prelude to our deployment in 2012.
Yeah, and it really set the stage for what we were going to experience in 2012. As anybody who may have Googled the Panjwai podcast at any point, one of the first things that comes up in addition to the podcast is the Panjwai Massacre. On March 11th, 2012, Staff Sergeant Robert Bales walked off of his base just west of Zangabad, and murdered 16 innocent Afghan civilians. And this happened days before we deployed.
Yep, a week before we deployed. The week before we deployed.
Yes, yeah.
And so we, at that time, it was headline news. We knew it was in Panjwai. We knew where we were going. And so for us, it was like, what are we going to be walking into? We didn't know what to expect. So it really did kind of frame the deployment for us in some ways. So, when we first started this project, a couple of dudes reached out to us, guys, Brandon Chong and James Alexander, who served under Bobby Bales, and they had a unique perspective to offer, and they had some interesting insights to offer into that story that maybe isn't in the official version. So
it's definitely not widely reported.
Yeah.
And it's really important to note this is their first time talking about this publicly. Mm-hmm. Both Brandon and James were official witnesses in the case for the prosecution. They weren't called to testify. It didn't end up becoming necessary because Robert Bales pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. But they were there. They served under him. They had served under him for months before the deployment. They knew him about as well as anybody else in that unit. And when all that stuff went down, they had a front row seat to every event that happened. Obviously, they weren't there when he was off the base, but as far as him coming onto the base and how he was received and how the facts and things started to unfold. And it was just really fascinating to see it through their eyes. And I think our listeners and the wider audience of all Americans will be interested to hear their perspective of this story.
Yeah, they, when they reached out to us, obviously we vetted them, pretty meticulously. Once we realized that these were legitimate dudes who had something to actually say, we felt that this was an appropriate platform for them. We were glad and honored that they chose us to deliver this particular message, or not their message, but their perspective. And so, we just wanted to provide them the space to do that. That being said, Curtis.
Yeah. So as Luke mentioned, we did vet them. And that included getting a hold of the official copy of the Army's 15-6 investigation and some other primary source reporting, which we are posting on our website at www.thepanjwaipodcast.com/massacre, so that you can follow along if you'd like and look at the facts as they report them, but also so you know that we didn't pull these guys out of a gutter and whatever. These guys were there. Their stories matched up. I didn't even tell them I had the 15-6 when I first started talking to them, and they just started telling me stories that were in it. So it's really important to know that we vetted them. Second, it's extremely important that you understand that they're going to say some things and bring some things to light that are going to be controversial. It is important to note that those views and opinions expressed by James and Brandon do not represent the opinions or views of the Panjwai podcast. Any retelling or clarification on the account of the hosts is simply for the purpose of clarity and does not reflect our personal opinions. We've gone to great lengths to conceal the identities of others involved and in no way intend to levy accusations or suggestions of guilt towards any individual. Again, for more information, including the official 15-6 investigation and any other supporting documents, visit www.panjwaipodcast.com/massacre. And with that, welcome to Season 2 of the Panjwai Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very unique episode of the Panjwai Podcast. We are joined today by James Alexander and Brandon Chong, who were infantrymen assigned to 2-3 Infantry under Staff Sergeant Robert Bales. For those of you that are somewhat in the know, Staff Sergeant Robert Bales is currently serving a life sentence for the murder of, I believe, 16 women and children, men, women, and children, Afghan civilians after he walked off his base on March 12th, 2012. We have the opportunity to talk to Brandon and James about what they saw and experienced as soldiers directly under Staff Sergeant Bales' command. And we had kind of the opportunity to tell a story that hasn't been widely told. So I really want to thank you guys for reaching out, for agreeing to speak publicly on the matter for the first time with us. That's a big deal to us that you would trust us with your story, so thank you.
Big time. Yeah, and the crazy thing about this story, as it pertains to our deployment, is this massacre happened a week before we deployed, and we knew it was in Panjwai. We knew it was where we were going, and so all of us were already kind of on edge because this tragedy had already happened there, and we were about to walk into the aftermath of that. So it really framed everything for us, and we were trying to think how is this going to impact our first few days there? What's it going to look like? How are the people going to be behaving towards us? So it was definitely in the front of our minds, as well as at that point, it was front page news too. So yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming on and telling us your part of this story, and maybe telling us some things that isn't really out there as much. So to start things off, why don't you guys give us just a quick introduction of yourselves, how you ended up in, Belambai, all that good stuff.
Hi, I'm James Alexander. I joined the Army in 2010 to be an infantryman. I graduated basic training and was assigned almost immediately to head to Fort Lewis. The irony behind this is I joined the Army to see the world. I went to a recruiting station in Tacoma, Washington, was assured I would go anywhere in the world, attempted to switch to get a Germany duty station with someone in basic training. My drill sergeant was like, "You don't want to do that. You're going to deploy if you go to this unit." And I was like, "Right on. Okay, I want to deploy." So that's what I did. I came to Fort Lewis and processed and ended up in Bico.
All right. My name's Brandon Chong. Joined the Army in 2010 as well. Watched too much Band of Brothers. Joined with an airborne contract, thinking I was going to be a high-speed paratrooper. Ended up in a striker unit. Got there right when they got back from Iraq, like around July, August, and then Bales took over the platoon in September. So I pretty much got to deal with him since day one of the unit.
So when did you guys deploy to Afghanistan?
December 2nd, 2011.
So you were there for just a few months before us, and just a few months before all this shit went down.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like, I think Bales was there on ground for 89 days in total. So it's like, when you think about it, the time period that with all the stuff that really happened to us was just, I mean, it just like was a sprint. It just all happened really quickly, and we were out of there, by May. So, it was kind of nuts. Yeah.
You guys first met Staff Sergeant Bales, Bobby, Robert. We'll use the terms interchangeably.
Uncle Bobby, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that we're not using these terms endearingly. It's just,
sure. It's just what he was called. Yeah.
It's first names and how he was called, and trust me, there's nothing endearing about this individual. He was serving as your platoon sergeant for a period of time. Is that correct?
Yeah. So from September until we got back from NTC about August 2011.
Yeah, my first day in the unit, I walk in, you meet your platoon sergeant, and he's standing there in front of me, and I can see over him because, he's a kind of a shorter guy. And I'm looking down at him, and he's looking up at me, and he's just like smiling, big smile on his face, so happy to see me. I'm like, oh man, here we go. And yeah, just, it was shenanigans from then on, really, to be honest. It was like, you knew this guy was a different breed from kind of just the 5-minute interactions I had with him. It was just like, these 5-minute interactions with him a day, maybe. And it was just like, man, something is just a little off on the guy. But you never knew this bad, but you knew like, man, he's a little bit different than most people. You know what I mean? And then the more I got to know him, and the more he explained who he was and where he came from and his lifestyle and stuff and his beliefs, it was like, okay, yeah, this guy is really different. He's kind of fucking strange. Yeah. So. And
you said that started to really show itself during your PT sessions.
Yeah, that was... Chong, I don't know if you remember this, but when we did a PT session when he carried the rucksack, and he was like, I can't lose. I refuse to lose to the first sergeant when we were doing that competition.
Yeah, the Black Horse Challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing a company-wide competition, and it's platoon versus platoon, iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing. And so we had to carry this rucksack that was full of rocks and just weights, dead weights. And it was probably like, I don't know, 150 pounds. Like no one person should be able to carry this thing easily, right? And he just picked it up, put it on his back, and just like couldn't really walk. and the first sergeant was like, hey man, like put that down. And he was just like, I refuse to lose. and like just started really slowly walking until he eventually dropped it. It was just like, all right, this guy's just built different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had PT sessions on Mondays. Every Monday was the same thing. We did the exact same thing every Monday. Like you knew the Bales Loop at 0635, you knew no matter what, you could have dental appointment. You were on that Bales Loop. You knew that you were doing that Bales Loop until around 8, 7:45 around or 8. And it was about a 6 to 8 mile loop that he would take us on. And it was just brutal, man. It was like, it was fast when it was fast uphill and slow every other time. It was crazy. It's just designed to break you off. It was a drunk run, I guess, essentially.
Mm.
And could you describe kind of like your interactions with him? Obviously, they were different when he was your squad leader, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But when he was your platoon sergeant, what was his interaction like with you as a new infantry private, and also with the other NCOs in the company, or I guess in the platoon?
I mean, as a platoon sergeant, I really didn't have too much interaction with him. I was just like a grenadier at the time. So went to Yakima, really had no interaction. NTC, I had a little bit more just because I was an RTO, and he would just do kind of like weird things. Like specifically, we're in the transient tents, and he would like sleep in his kit, and then wake up in the middle of the morning and just start screaming at everybody because he was ready first. It was just like bizarre things like that, and I don't know. He's just
yeah,
I don't really.
That was a good one.
It's just a weird dude, but like nobody really expected anything like this. And as a platoon sergeant, I didn't really have too much interaction with him as well.
Right. You knew he was wired really tight, and you knew that like he cared. He was very passionate. There was never a moment where he was like in the wrong uniform or ever jacked up. Never, he always had a haircut. It was never anything that would make a upper level leader look down on him and be like, okay, that soldier is jacked up. In fact, it was
he checked
the
all
opposite.
the right boxes.
Exactly. And in fact, that's part of the reason why he got the mission to VSP Belambai, was because he was the most combat and experienced leader in the entire battalion, according to the people
On
that make
paper
the decisions.
anyways.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he was supposed to be this model NCO for the battalion, especially, the model for the company for sure. But yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah. So
We could probably go ad nauseum about how that's an institutional issue in the military, but that takes us way off the track for what we're talking about today. No, you're good. No, it's good, but it's good to hear that. So leading up to the deployment, especially like right around the time you deployed, you guys begin to get a sense of kind of what this guy is like and what his personality is like, and you're also beginning to get this sense that something's just a little off, right? And what have you heard about him leading up to that point? I mean, 'cause I'm sure rumor mills churned about this dude because he had a pretty serious military history, right? He deployed how many times to Iraq?
This would have been his fourth one to with ours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'd heard like some stories like in 2007, in the Battle of Najaf, he had seen some stuff, and I think he had lost part of his foot there as well. He had a rollover in the deployment prior in 2009, 2010. And he'd always speak to us like, he's like, hey, if you guys ever smoke anybody, just make sure you take their hats, all right? You make sure you take them as a trophy. That was like one big thing of his.
yeah,
Just make sure we take a trophy. Yeah, it's kind of things like that.
Yeah.
So he's telling you when you kill someone, pick something off their body to take
Yeah,
a trophy.
I can see him right now exactly where he said it. It was right behind the company. We had this little crappy defect back there, and he said it right. I can see it right now.
Yeah.
When we found out we were going to deploy, he was pretty much like, all right, here's the game plan for being. I don't even know if he knew he was going to be the squad leader at that time. I think he still thought he was going to be the platoon sergeant potentially.
Yeah, because that change happened after NTC. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
we were in NTC when we actually. So one of our team leaders saw. His wife had sent him like a CNN article saying our brigade was going to deploy in wintertime. And we're like, oh, okay, great way to find out. And then like the day we got back from NTC, I'm pretty sure that's when our new platoon sergeant was like waiting for us. Like we got off the buses. Our new platoon sergeant was just standing there.
Did that appear to affect Bobby when he was essentially demoted from platoon sergeant to squad leader?
Dude, I mean, just like killing this man's child almost. I mean, he loved. I mean, that was being the platoon lesson. Like you could tell when he takes pride in something, he would standing in front of that formation is like an time-honored tradition, right? Like being the platoon sergeant, turning around and having 30 people like look back at you and you have complete command and control over them. And he abused that power. But, like during PT sessions, he would stand in the front and, first sergeant's doing his thing or whatever. And he would just be joking around like the whole time. But you could tell he was doing it for an audience. So he really loved having like the captive audience and having that attention. So yeah, that's just my opinion, but yeah, from what I observed, sure.
I mean, it was pretty interesting that they didn't even move him out of the platoon or the company. So he literally got demoted and then kind of couldn't get over that. So he was almost like the assistant platoon sergeant. Like they were kind of just always going at it like the new platoon sergeant tried to change something around. And he'd be like, no, we shouldn't do it. We've always done it like this for the past 6 months, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Exactly.
But I mean, he was a staff sergeant. I mean, at some point you expect this, that they're going to slot somebody in as a sergeant for his class to fill the proper role. Like he was serving in a role above his rank, not the other way around.
Sure. Yeah.
But I can definitely see you do it for 6 months. That's your platoon. It's not a great thing to have it taken away, especially right before deployment when.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I think he would have acted differently if the platoon sergeant that came in was like a tab dude or like we had my team leader came from BAT, right? Like he came over from BAT for the deployment basically. So I think it would be different if he had like some guy like that you could like honestly see like, okay, this guy is far more qualified to lead than I am, but he basically saw the other guy as an equal. And so that was the thing that I think really caused a lot of the issue because Bobby was a team player for the most part. Like I feel like if his role was to like take a squad and go to VSP Belambai, he would have done it, but he still wanted control. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that he was lacking when he lost his platoon sergeantship. We'll call it.
When he got demoted, or not demoted, but he basically moved over to being a squad leader. Were you guys in the same squad together at that time and he just took over, or how did that all play out?
He had a task org different too, right? because we were
Yeah.
changing
So
from a striker
before that,
mission.
I was in RTO, and I think you were in what, second squad?
Second squad under.
Yeah. So basically, once the new platoon sergeant came in, that's when we did a new draft, and just the whole platoon lined up, all 4 squad leaders lined up, and just you come in here, and us two were lucky enough to go with old Bobby B.
Yeah, it's just he drafted us because I think he knew that we were the task org was going to change. He knew that like having people with diverse skill set was going to be like part of the mission. So he wanted someone that could drive, and he wanted someone that was good with an RTO more than he wanted someone that was like just good at PT, where the other platoon sergeants, or I mean the other squad leaders, seemed to like focus on like keeping their squad integral as opposed to like really changing it for the mission that we were about to go on with SF. So
Yeah, and y'all's mission was brand new on the docket in terms of what 11 Bravos were doing around that time. And in the next few years of the fight in Afghanistan, it became more and more common. But up to that point, it was kind of rare for what exactly you guys did. So you deployed in December, you said?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So December 2011. So what was your mission? What were you doing? And then tell us where were you at, and like what that looked like for you guys.
So we got to Manus, December 2nd or December 4th, something like that. We were there for like 3 days. I'm sorry, December 4th. Then we get to CAF. We were there for from December 7th to December 14th. So we spent 7 days on CAF and basically living inside of the clamshell bunks, trying to figure out what we were doing. We knew our mission was different because of the brief that we got at CAF. We got told to go over to like by the poo pond, and if the famous poo pond, we went to a theater there where we got a brief by this like really young major.
Yeah.
Like he was an SF major, right? And he was stood up there and he had like the full head of hair to the side, and it was like he was in full presentation mode, hand in his pocket, and he was like giving us this presentation about where we were going in this giant map. And we knew at that point we were going to Belambai. We had been told like, yeah, you're going to Panjwai, we're going to Belambai. Okay, we know this. And we're looking at the map, and it shows like all of the different like types of injuries and type of explosives that are in the area and kind of weapons that are in the area. And it's showing different VSPs. And some of the VSPs like have sporadic small arms fire, and and then you go like to look where we are, and it's like IED threat, act like rifle, small arms fire, like persistent small arms fire, RPG threat, like all of these things are up there, and we're just like, holy crap, man, here we go.
Yeah.
Like we're going into it. Like, and you could see visibly people being like, oh my God, thank you that they weren't going to this place. It's because we're all just in the room getting briefed, It's crazy. It was crazy. It was so wild.
What was Bell's kind of attitude like when you guys got spun up to go out there? And also, real quick, what's a VSP for people who aren't in the know?
Oh, Village Stability Platform to perform village stability operations.
Very well put.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is some army speak right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
AKA a base to run sneaky operations out of.
Yes.
Well, I think it's important to note, and we'll get into the geography of Belambai here in a second, but it's unlike a lot of cops and FOBs that build themselves up all this huge standoff.
Mm-hmm.
They put themselves in the middle of the field, and they put all these layers of defenses. The VSPs were in the villages. They were almost like you couldn't even tell they were there from the outside unless you were bird's eye looking down.
Yeah,
which I think is in itself a very unique and very non-tactical approach to doing business in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely unconventional.
Probably within hand grenade range of the village, right?
Because we had gotten the word in like August we're deploying, and then around September, things started trickling down. Like, hey, we're going to be deployed with special forces. And we're like, what are you talking about, man? Like, it just didn't seem like a weird rumor.
PNN,
and then the battalion commander was like, no, we're doing a new mission. We're doing with special forces. And then the sergeant major was like, look, half you guys can't pass a PT test, but you just passed selection. So it's just kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah, that was an all-time horseshoe moment. We're all gathered around in a horseshoe after PT, and we're like, Sergeant Major's just like, you looking at us like all the fat bodies, and like, you guys can't pass a PT test, but you just got selected. And it was like, holy crap, What is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's brand new, like I said, and I mean, it's from the outside looking in, it seems like a really cool assignment, right? Because it's kind of unique, and you're getting an insider's perspective on some things, which is obviously important to this Bales narrative. So, when you guys got attached to this very specific and kind of high speed, appealing mission, what was Bales like? What was his demeanor like whenever you guys got wind that you're going out to Belambai?
Initially, he was excited 100%. I know he said it was kind of something he'd always wanted to do. He said one of his dreams was to go on patrol in a Razor and be in the passenger side gunning on a 240, which he actually got to do eventually.
Not that I want to have anything in common with this guy, but I have to agree with him on that one.
Yeah. It's a cool dream, but man.
So yeah, he was 100% for it,
Right.
Yeah.
So he was ready to roll, huh?
Yeah, he was like, because he had spent time as a sniper section, so he kind of felt like he could add all these dimensions, and he understood kind of the warfare that we were going to be going to. So he thought that, his tactical knowledge, it would be like more applicable in perhaps like a mount environment than it would be like what we had been doing literally up until we deployed, which was striker on striker. I mean, we had done literally like our patrol bases were just like a horseshoe of strikers. Like, it's just crazy.
Circle the wagons.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just crazy.
Because they kept telling us we were going to Libya. Like, we're training for Libya, because it was like 2011. So
That's right.
Be rolling around in Libya, and then to find out it's like, oh, actually, you're not going to be needing these vehicles that you just spent, days and weeks going to gunnery for at Yakima, and like learning how to mount and dismount, and like assigning roles, and like I was a driver, right? So that was my thing. A brand new private. They were like, yeah, you're going to be a driver. I'm like, why? They're like, you're going to be a driver. I'm like, okay, fine. So I was made driver/armorer, and I was like the helper. And so that job was just brutal,
good job
man.
to have, actually.
Yeah. Not when you have to go do motor pool Monday, like maintenance every single Monday, and you're the driver.
No, the driver sucks. The assistant armorer, that's the opportunity for a lot of sham there.
Exactly. I took full advantage of that one, but it was cool because I also got to interface with the platoon sergeant, and that was Bales at the time. So that was like, I lived in the barracks, and that was the important thing too we have to talk about is we literally lived where we worked. Like the company was a level below where the barracks were. So
God.
like when if you needed something, it was too easy. We'd stay in our rooms. We basically had like squad rooms, and my room, although it had 3 people in it, including myself, became a squad room, and we'd have like a futon. I had a computer and a printer, and that's why I was the armor, because I had a printer. I could print out Excel. You know what I mean? It became like, hey, you're like, you're available, and you're not going to screw this up too badly, because if you do, we'll just make you do push-ups. Like, sure, okay, or touch the tank. You know what I mean? Like, all right, Raj.
So when you guys got to Belambai, what were you going to ask something, Curtis?
Oh, I was going to ask if anybody else in your squad had been to Afghanistan at all.
Only one. Just the guy came from Ranger Bat was only one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he had done so in his capacity as a ranger.
Yes.
So you actually had no on the ground like conventional infantry experience in your squad.
Yeah, he had 2 deployments to Afghanistan, and then came to us like 2 months before ours.
And guys, and we've talked about this in previous episodes. Like, obviously, it counts that he went to Afghanistan, but when you go as part of a raid force, it's really not the same as occupying and living in an AO and patrolling it daily during the daytime, which was something that our company had the same kind of deficiency. We had 2 guys that had been to Afghanistan in an infantry capacity. I mean, it's just
different.
It was brand new. We were mechanized. I mean, strikers are basically mechanized. It was very out of place for us to be in the places that we were.
I remember we had classes on Afghanistan that were given by a brand new E5 that showed up from 10th Mountain, Chong. You remember that? And he gave us a class in the barracks, and it was like he gave us these learn Pashto like notebooks, and like literally did like a Wikipedia lesson of like, okay, there are however many million people, and like here's the currency, and it's like, what are we like, what's going on here? Because we had no clue, no one, and like it was mandatory that everybody showed up. It was crazy. I can't believe that, like,
And then
was the
everything he
lesson
taught
we
you was
got.
useless because he went to Kunar and
Right,
you guys went
exactly.
to Panjwai, and it's completely different.
Exactly. But it was like we need classes whipped up for these guys to figure out like where they're going, what their mission is, that kind of thing. So
Another check the box training.
Some of that classic high excelling army training there.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
So
But,
when you got to Belambai, can you kind of describe what your roles were in supporting? I mean, with that you can say. Obviously, you're supporting special forces, so there's a lot of stuff we can't really go into. But like in general, what was your role in supporting those guys?
I would say initially just kind of beefing up security on patrols, helping up with base defense, help building up the VSP itself. I mean, we were integrated far better than I expected. I kind of thought we were just gonna be like, hey man, fill these sandbags and don't say nothing. But they actually integrated in patrols and felt like we were part of the team for the most part as soon as we got there with their group.
And did that include a lot of like foot patrols outside the wire?
Yes.
When we first got there, there was a SIGINT team that was there as well, Navy SIGINT team. And when they did the RIP with the ODAs switched, the SIGINT team also left. So basically they trained us up on how to use it. So we became like these proprietary knowledge bases of what like frequencies to look at, like how to run the Wolfhound. So it became like a bunch of, we really became like as much enablers as we could, trying to like allow the SF guys to make great decisions. And that's like kind of our role. I don't know. And then carrying shit, like,
Definitely carrying.
yeah, like we pack muled.
Yeah, here you go, PFC. Here's the Mark 48. You're going to love it.
Yeah, it was like I had the Wolfhound and a couple extra radios and some C4 and some other random stuff that I didn't even know was mine. But that was like, hey, we need to carry this in case we run out or something. It was like, all right, yeah, like I'm part of the team, sure, like you know what I mean.
Meanwhile, long hair over there is walking around with nothing but a plate carrier on.
Right.
HK 416.
Right. Like, you guys good? Why are you guys sucking? It's like, what?
Yeah.
Selection starts every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, I started out as a saw gunner, and then probably 2-3 weeks into it, they made me, I guess, the conventional RTO. So I got trained up by the 18 Echo, and they just basically had me filling all the radios for the trucks and calling up to the SOTIF on all the patrols for about a month or two until 7th group came in.
That was cool. It was cool to hear Chong calling up, man. Like you hear him like calling up all these different like lingo.
I'd be terrified,
and,
man.
Yeah. But the other thing I had that was awesome that they really liked was the 203. So the thing that I basically, my weapon was a piece of junk. No offense to anybody in the arms room that I tried to help out. I tried to help out all the other soldiers before I helped myself. But I mean, I had a M68 and a set of 7 Deltas out there.
Oh,
like it was
that's rough.
I mean, we were pretty much useless at night, and we really couldn't see anything with zoom. So the only saving grace I had was the 203, which I got to fire all the time.
Nice.
So
yeah, grenade launchers, I would argue, are a top 3 must for combat in Panjwai.
Yeah, man. We
and lots of them. Like everybody should have one.
Yeah,
we rolled with a lot of 40 mag.
Yeah, a lot. Every bit that we could get.
Yeah. Yep. So you guys are there. You're kind of hitting your lick on your mission set. I'm sure you're kind of getting into the pace of things. But to kind of get us back on Bales, like, what did you see? What kind of stuff were you guys seeing on him or him do as he lead up to this, this crazy event that happens in March? I mean, was he starting to crack? Was he starting to show little fissures? I mean, what was going on with him, at least from y'all's perspective?
Man, I mean, I remember our first patrol, we were like 20 meters outside the gate, 50 meters outside the gate. So we had gone, just kind of done a little loop. We were jumping some walls. So we thought we were far. We'd maybe been out for
we got
40
completely
minutes.
Disoriented. We were like making a bunch of left turns, you know what I mean? And basically just to do a little circle. But yeah, go ahead, my bad.
And then we ended up back on the road, and we see like a dude coming on a motorcycle, and he's like, "If this guy gets any closer, we're gonna light him up." And when everyone's on edge at this point. It's our first patrol, and it turns out we like literally in front of the gate, and we cannot like if we would have fired, we would have hit like the A&A tower like right behind us.
Yeah.
Like,
And
his situational awareness was off. Like it was, we found an HME compound literally right there, right outside of our gate.
Like homemade explosives.
Yeah. So they were doing a BIP blow in place, and like while we were doing that, the infantry dudes are going to set up a little fucking cordon security. So Brandon and I are like facing down Charlottetown Road, and we're like lying down on the road, and he's got his saw up, and there's this old man that comes up on a bicycle, and we're like. And
very common sight in Panjwai.
Yeah, no duh. Like I've been here 5 minutes, but this guy seems pretty damn innocent to me. I mean, I don't know anything, usually, and then the later you find out it's the old guys you have to worry about, but,
he was just doing some reconnaissance is
Exactly. So maybe he was on his way to the HME lab to check it out, but you never know. So, I mean, Bales is like foaming at the mouth, man, like helmet tilted to the side, like just looking crazy. Like, if you guys need to smoke these guys, just go ahead and do it. Don't even worry. Just go ahead and smoke them. And then I'm looking at Brandon like, bro, I'm not ready to kill this dude. I don't know about you. Yeah. And no, sir. There's no way I'm killing this dude right now. Like, I don't really, unless he blows himself up. That's like the only way he's dying. So, it's like,
I mean, it's crazy that, obviously this guy's fucking nuts to start with, but the fact that he's telling you to pull the trigger on somebody with no clear indication, no PID on weapons or anything.
Hardly
like
any experience in the AO either.
No, being your first patrol and he's trying to get you to pull the trigger on people that obviously had no reason to be on the receiving end of y'all's wrath,
Right.
So
we're also literally outside of our gate. It made no sense. It's like he was so disoriented by his own action, just continually like going, basically trying to be a team leader. That was what I was so interesting, is that he kind of like sort of saw us as like part of his team almost and try to like do team leader stuff. And it was kind of like, but we just got here. Like, there's a bunch of SF dudes who have been here for 9+ months, plus however how many other deployments they've had and long they've been. And they seem pretty relaxed about the situation. We should probably just go with what they're doing. You know what I mean? Monkey see, monkey do, right? Like, but he wasn't like that,
Now, when we talked before in some of the pre-interviews, you mentioned that most of your contact was either like from right outside the gate or like while you were in the base. Do you think it was frustrating for him to not get into anything further out where he kind of had the ability to maneuver his guys and get into an actual firefight that he controlled and that he wasn't under the control of the SF guys?
I don't know. I don't think he wanted to fire and maneuver. I don't think that's what he wanted to do. I just think he wanted to like basically go live and do, because we did 36-hour missions where we would take contact, right? Yeah. And he enjoyed those very much. And he would just like, he would be like, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be out here all the time, like pulling 4 days and like doing patrol bases and that kind of stuff. Like, he wanted to be more in the fight than back at our base, which
and that's kind of what I was getting.
I don't think he understood that our base was in the fight. You know what I mean? Like, that was the whole point of the base, was to be in the fight, right? Like, the base was there simply with a giant American flag to be like, hey, we're here,
Right.
Like,
Now, those 36-hour missions you're talking about, is that where you do a patrol, you'd occupy a compound and hang out there for a few days and then go back, kind of like patrol base ops?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just get up on top of roofs and, get overwatch onto the main cluster of village. So we did it in Najibia and Alakozai once as well. So basically areas that Bales ended up going to and hitting were areas that we had done 36-hour missions on and so forth.
So he was familiar with the routes to and from those villages and the villages themselves.
Absolutely.
And we probably went to those villages every couple of days, like every day or two, either one.
Right. Just, it depends how deep and how far. Sometimes we would just go for what would seem like a presence patrol, but it was really probably like, hey, just going to go check in our, we'd get some informant that would come through the gate and he'd be like, hey, something's going on over here. And then we'd get action. And then like, a day or two later, we'd go and check out these areas, or like we'd get shot at by a sniper. And then a day or two later, we'd go walk to that area and just to let them know that we weren't going to allow it to kind of happen to us over and over again. But yeah.
Now, what was the IED threat like going to and from those villages? Because I can tell you right now, July in Panjwai, we couldn't have done what you guys did without a massive mine-clearing element. Like, were they just not on the roads at all at that time? Or kind of describe what it was like?
On our first 36-hour mission, which had to have been like early January, I didn't go on that one specifically, but they went out to Western Belambai, and then on the way back, found 5 IEDs on the way back.
Wow.
So
So
And then,
who
they
was
found the
doing the
ancient-
mine clearing? Was that Afghan? Was it one of the Afghan mine clearing
No.
forces, or was that
So
the 18,
that was one of
18
the
Echo? Or
One of the great things about being with SF is all the attachments. So we would have like
Yeah.
Navy EOD, Army EOD, and these were like high-ranking dudes, most likely.
Yeah.
I don't know, like specifically designed for these missions. So you could
Right.
tell that, like, same with like the working dogs that we had, like all the handlers, all these guys were like top tier professionals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
so they were
yeah.
there, but they were
So
just
they
good at finding them.
Yeah, on that
yeah,
specific,
they were efficient. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
on that specific mission, I think it was still Army EOD was still there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We I mean, we would sometimes like we would be like, okay, is that compound clear? And they'd be like, potentially. And it's like, okay, it's like that's the answer we would get, because you never really know, man. Like they were sweeping, it seems like, just to move the element swiftly, more so
Yeah.
than it was like concerned with like moving vehicles and like setting
Right.
up like deep entrenched defenses or anything like that, you know. So
Well, I mean, because I've always thought about, and again, we'll get to his movements later, but the amount of ground that he covered,
Yeah.
and he had to, he used the roads to get to those villages.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't get blown up doing
shocking,
that
right?
still blows
Yeah.
my mind. Like,
It's
I don't
mind-blowing.
know how.
And tragic. If he could have got blown up,
Yeah, it could
that
have
would've
saved a lot of lives.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But then he'd, probably be a completely different story we're talking about.
that's true. Yeah.
Um,
As you guys are going through the deployment and you're getting into your licks, you start to see these characteristics of Bales really come to the surface. Was it a gradual kind of increase of his the way he was about things, or was it still just these series of small little glimpses y'all were getting?
Well, you could start it with the Jingle truck incident where
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of incidents to talk about, right? So, I mean, we think about,
let's talk
Yeah,
about the Jingle truck incident, because
yeah,
that
go ahead.
one's actually
Go
heavily
ahead.
cited in the 15-6 investigation
Sure.
and
Yeah.
subsequent reporting as kind of a huge red flag that was not necessarily missed, but had it been placed in the proper context, maybe could have, I don't know, just kind of tell us what happened, and why that's kind of important to the story going forward.
go ahead, dude.
all right, so we had these basically freezer connexes. That was how we had food. Like, that was the one thing about living out in these very remote areas, is that you had basically a freezer connex that you lived out of, that you had to make sure was fully stocked. That was one of the great jobs about being infantry, is that we get to do that too. So the Jingle truck would arrive. So we didn't have laundry facilities, so we would always have to drive back and forth to CAF. So there'd always be a mission to back and forth to CAF, at least one or two trucks. And so we would the vehicle would go out and then come back with like a Jingle truck full of mail or supplies, right? Almost every time. And so thankfully, this Jingle truck made it. We've had our mail blown up before. So this Jingle truck made it, and all these frozen like pallets of like steaks and all these like food is there. We're unloading it. And the driver is the first one to grab the pallet, and he's passing it like a chain down the chain, and Bales is the next one. And so the driver is trying to pass stuff down the chain, and he hit Bales one time because he's moving faster than Bales could pass it off. And so Bales kind of like yelled at him, gave him like a snarl, like, "Don't hit me again." But the driver obviously didn't really speak English, but was kind of like, "I don't really understand what you're yelling about, dude. I'm trying to unload this truck and get the hell out of here because I'm not from here and there's Taliban." Right? Like, I'm scared shitless. Like, I'm probably getting paid extra to do this route. Like, you know what I mean? So all these things are going through this guy's head. So
This guy would have been an Afghan local.
yeah, like
Probably
Afghan,
some dude from Kandahar City or something.
probably,
Yeah.
maybe not, more from the northern part. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
they just
true.
contract from all over. So
Yeah.
so he hits him again with another item, and Bales turns around and grabs him and just starts punching him in the face, like grabbing him. They're wrestling inside the thing, and the guy is just scared out of his mind. I'm like 4 people down the chain away, like looking at this, like, holy, what is going on? You know, like, is he really about to like fight this dude inside of a Jingle truck? Like, is this really happening right now? It was just kind of, it was surreal. Like, what is going on? Yeah.
Did that not raise some stink with any of your higher ups, or but nobody gave a shit?
I don't think it even left the VSP, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say higher ups, you have to understand, man, we're completely decentralized at this point.
Yeah.
So we're falling under, we don't even have a lieutenant. I mean, like, that's what people like
Yeah.
fail to understand is like, we were literally 2 squads. Like, that was it.
And he was and a staff sergeant was the highest ranking.
And the staff sergeant was the highest guy. Like, there was no,
So what about the SF guys? I mean, that had obviously had to create some sort of an issue for them. Was it just, did they address it offline, you know, in the way the NCOs deal with fellow NCOs, or was it?
That's how it was handled.
Had to have been.
believe it had to have been handled NCO to NCO. Like, the other thing is we were the ones doing the work, right? Like the SF dudes, if there's a Jingle truck coming in, you know what they're doing? Security, because they know, or they're going to check the blimps because they know that the Taliban are going to move on us because we have action. So they're staying, they're like, you know, when we say we're staying in the fight, like those guys were in the fight all the time. You know what I mean? So, you know, other at nighttime when we pulled guard. So
Now at this time had 7th group swapped in for 3rd group?
Yeah, 7th group was there at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And how was that transition? And did that have any effect on, you know, Bales? Did it throw him off? Was he finally getting comfortable and then there's a whole change of leadership and now he has to like relearn all the ropes, or was he pretty agreeable to the switch?
I think he was a little disappointed with the new tempo of 7th group. 3rd group was definitely more aggressive, but they'd been there longer. So they kind of knew what was going on and how to deal with things. And I think he was a little disappointed that 7th group wasn't quite as aggressive. And I mean, this is my personal opinion. I kind of feel like when 7th group came in, they just looked down on us a little bit. We're just regular infantry dudes. These are SF guys. I don't think they had done a VSP mission yet prior to this one. So like 3rd group, by the time we got there, they had 2 different conventional infantry units. So they kind of, I think, had a better understanding of a working relationship with the conventional side.
Yeah, and our capabilities as well. Like we were limited. We were extremely limited, and we would only go as far as they could take us, right? So like if they wanted us to get into the fight, they would have to take us to the fight, because there's no way that these 2 squads could operate really in that area without them or the EOD or the handlers.
Because you didn't have your own trucks and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you fell in under all their stuff.
All their stuff. Like we were basically renters. Like we rented. You know, like they owned the trucks and we would rent them. You know, that's how it works. But you know, it was a great relationship. I have, like, from my own personal standpoint, like to be treated like with some merit. Like it was almost like
an adult.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, you guys are here. We're not getting anybody else. We don't even have a full SF team because we've got so many dudes getting blown up and getting injured and whatever, trying to get out here.
Yeah.
So it's like, you guys are just going to have to do these jobs and you're going to have to figure it out. And that was the theme that stayed throughout, you know, whether it was filling sandbags or putting up HESCOs, it was like, you guys are going to have to do it. You know what I mean? Because there isn't anybody else to rely on. So, yeah.
Now, were there other non-military assets on that base that were also performing tasks?
I believe so. Yes, most definitely. Like there were a few. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you can't talk about what they were doing, but just to kind of set the stage that it was a military operation, but there were other assets in play.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of obvious, just some of the disposition and the change in characters and like.
Right. And did you know that those individuals were civilians, or was that kind of left open to, you don't ask about those?
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
We're all on a first name basis. So like that is what it is. And you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to ask questions. Like we're all here, you're working for the US. So at that point it doesn't really matter, you know? And like, you know, cause we have to also remember there's also green and blues going on at this time and that kind of stuff. So we were like just completely skeptical of everyone on the base, minus the US guys, you know?
Sure.
So it was just like, if you're helping, we'll take it, you know? So.
What about the Afghans? How close were you guys to where they were living and working?
25 meters.
Man, we were intermingled. Man, they'd be washing their clothes and we'd be washing our clothes. Like we would wash our clothes in the sink and they'd be like in the outdoor plumbing washing their clothes. Like we'd be on guard at night and we'd look across and then the next rooftop is them on guard looking back at us. Like it was just like,
Man, that
okay.
would sketch me out.
Yeah,
we used to watch
Blues.
We used to watch Deal or No Deal with those guys.
Yep. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I forgot about that. Yeah. And
And they would blur out the ankles on TV.
yep.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It was crazy.
Wow, that's interesting.
We would they would like play volleyball and soccer against each other, like anything. Because when it was getting kind of obvious, it was like I love all my infantry dudes, but I've known you guys for like months and months and months, and I don't know anybody else. Like I want to go out here and see like who else is here, kind of thing. So I was really curious to meet folks and like ask some questions and just basically build rapport with some of the Afghans, especially the interpreters. Like those guys are unbelievable. Those guys and gals, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, gals, interpreters.
Yeah, we had one female interpreter.
Yeah, it was
Really?
wild.
So
Yep.
did you guys have a fet team on the cop, or was it just her?
No, she was just solo dolo.
Solo
Really?
dolo,
Wow.
riding it out, and yeah, she was a warrior, man. That chick was badass. Yeah, for sure.
Was she
Yeah.
American or?
No way to tell.
honestly don't remember. Yeah.
I don't know. She
Not
was,
an accented English then, huh?
She was middle age. I would say middle aged, but she was probably in her 30s, or I mean late 30s, early 40s, and like she had been probably experiencing the Afghan lifestyle for a very long time. So
Gotcha.
like but she also was like every dialect. So that's the other thing about our interpreters. We didn't have an interpreter that was just specialized in one. We would have them multilingual to be able to address both the ANA and the Taliban locals, basically.
Yeah.
So I remember we had one female interpreter for a brief period of time in Spur One Guard, and she was Scottish.
Yeah.
We just thought it was weird that there was a middle-aged Scottish chick that spoke flawless Pashto. It was just, just unique.
Yeah.
I would imagine yours was probably, and this is a pretty common story, is that they were
American citizen.
They were American citizen, but they were born in Afghanistan, fled during the Soviet, that kind of thing. That seemed like a pretty common backstory for those higher level interpreters.
Especially with that age group too, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. But hey, if she's watching, if you want to come on the show, that would be fascinating.
We would love to have you.
That would be
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So as you know, as we're creeping through and you're getting to these ticks, and you're watching Robert, but I mean, I understand, like, you're not really watching him like you think he's going to go off and do what he's going to do. He's just your boss, and you do what he says, and you roll your eyes when he does something crazy. But things started to kind of reach a fever pitch in March, obviously. Can you kind of explain, because the popular narrative is that or the narrative that he tried to sell with his defense attorneys is that he was reacting out of post-traumatic stress because he watched his buddy lose his leg,
right?
Or his arm or something a couple days before, which was not the case.
Correct.
So could you kind of walk us through the events that actually happened? The IED incident that happened, I believe, was on the 5th, which was not the day before; it was like a week before.
Right.
What happened there, and then kind of how that started to lead towards March 12th.
So we had the switch of ODA teams in February, right? So around February 1st, that's when they switched, and we had gone on mission with them. And so we had walked around and like basically interfaced with the locals in both the villages. So we had an idea, okay, we have the same on the ground assessment that these are the locals in the areas, right? Like these are the players, these are the frequencies that we need to monitor. So we were listening pretty carefully to all Taliban members in and around the VSP, like literally listening to them on the ICOM radios. So we had a really good understanding of where the enemy, or where we thought the enemy combatants were, and what their actions were going to be moving forward. The IED threat that you're talking about, that happened when one of our trucks was on the way back from Kandahar. Like I was explaining, we did all these kind of like log packs back and forth just to get stuff, right? Like nudie mags, cigarettes, like whatever we needed, coffee, like we would have to go and get it just to replace it, right? So, so one of the trucks that one of our buddies was driving, or the truck that our buddy was driving, got blown up on the way back. And that's pretty much what kicked off the chaos. I remember I was outside and I heard that the metal, just like the sound of the IED hitting the truck, and you could hear the metal just like that gut wrenching sound. It's just like unbelievable. And I was stunned. I didn't know what it was. Couldn't because I'd never heard the sound before like that, Right. And the chief came out, and he was always the go-to point. He came out of the ops center and said, "Hey, the truck got hit. Go to the battle stations." And so
Right.
for me, that meant get my equipment and run to the vehicle that overlooked, that faced north and overlooked where the truck got hit. So we got the vehicle up on the ramp, which you'll see in some of the images that we've shared. We have these ramps built into the VSP where you could drive the vehicle up so you could get the gun over the HESCO. Yep. So we're looking over the HESCO and get the vehicle up, being able to look over the HESCO, and you could just see the smoke. You could see there's like breaks in the wall, and you could kind of see like right next to the break in the wall is where the vehicle was. You could see kind of folks moving around back and forth. So yeah, that was when the vehicle got hit, and those guys got shaken up pretty badly, but no one got killed from that. And then we had to send basically a rescue mission, QRF, to go get them. Because that area where they got hit we had taken fire from there constantly. That was the last outcrop of buildings right before you got to the open area between us and the VSP. So they got hit like right in the right where right in the open areas. So I was not on the QRF, but they got mounted up. They walked out to go get them, and that's when the EOD guy got hit, basically by a secondary, lost his leg. Yeah.
That was a Navy EOD technician, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And how well did he know Staff Sergeant Bales?
Well, that's the
35
thing.
days.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because he came in as part of the reorg the switch out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I brought that up. So like, he hadn't really known him, and we hadn't really done many missions because we had just at that time we were getting hit at the base so much that it was like, why are we going to go on mission when we're just getting hit? Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Sit there at the house in your flip flops and fuck them up.
Exactly. Oh, we got plenty of pictures
blame
of that. Us in like PT uniforms, like, body armor, just getting it in. And it's,
It's every infantryman's dream is to get in a gunfight and flip flops as PTs.
With a beard.
And his body armor. With a beard.
With a beard. Or what we
Again,
what
selection
passed for a
starts every
beard.
2 weeks.
Exactly. So we got to grow our beards out. That's actually a funny story, Chong. We got to grow our beards out until the people higher ups would show up, and then it would be like, hey, hurry up, go shave your face. And you got like 10 infantry dudes like stuffed into a Connex that has like 2 dirty ass sinks in it that has like disgusting water coming out of it, and we're all like trying to shave our face. Like, it was crazy. It was so crazy. And some of those guys could really grow beards, but not me. So
yeah,
it was
I
pretty
was not one of them.
Yeah. I got to the point to where the Afghans would ask the interpreters if I was an Afghan. Like,
really?
Like that's the kind of, but that's also how dirty we were, because not only did we not have laundry, we had probably the craziest shower facilities. I mean, I was blessed just to have shower facilities, period. But like a shower Connex that was like, like the water was crazy, man. It was just wild. It was just so disgusting. It was so bad.
Yeah.
It was so bad. But, it is what it is.
Bush should have been up there on Sparrow Guard, man.
I know,
Castle in the sky.
I hear you guys'
man.
stories. And I get like enraged.
It was worth shaving every day to have that shower. Now the showers were
was.
still gross, but they weren't. At least they ran,
And they were outdoor showers. So
and they
in the
were
summer, that
outdoor
was
showers,
real
which is
nice.
really nice.
Yeah.
Sit and look at the stars while you're taking a shower.
Nice.
It's actually kind of pleasant.
Because the water's hot because it was 130 degrees all day, not because there's any kind of heating applied to it.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say that that Bobby Bales and this Navy EOD technician were not best friends.
That is safe to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
they probably met each other like 3 times. Huh?
That's a
Because
laughable
I know how it goes. Like it probably took us like 2 months before we realized it was cool to hang out with our EOD team that lived on our cop. And even still, like some people maybe were really close friends, but it was just like general acquaintances.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that he just met this Navy EOD guy. It's like, oh man, this is my new best friend.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what I'd do if he lost his leg.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it was like I can't when
It
I
was an
heard
excuse.
that, I was just like, wow, man, this guy's really fishing for anything.
He's reaching, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
Well,
crazy.
and even I don't remember if it was before or after that IED strike, but a couple guys in our battalion got caught like smoking hash. So when that happened, everybody, because we didn't have to wear patches, we didn't have to shave, like we could pretty much
we
wear
were
whatever
ISAF,
uniform.
yeah, exactly.
So after that happened, the battalion put out, or the company put out, we had to they had to enforce standards essentially. So we had to start shaving, start doing all this stuff, and then it was coming out that they were going to start piss testing And I remember specifically he was freaking out about being piss tested. He asked another squad leader. I was standing right there. He goes, "Hey man, do you think they're really gonna piss test us?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think so." And I want to say 2 or 3 days later is when we went and blew up that tree, and he made us start chopping it up.
Like
so that tree that you guys went to go blow up, what was the reason and significance behind that?
That tree was the one they'd used as a IED marker. So they used that, and then we went and blew it up, had to drag it back, and then we actually used these right here to chop up these trees.
Oh man,
the army
that sounds
axe,
like fun.
battle axe.
Yep.
Is that that wouldn't be a tomahawk. Luke has a tomahawk.
Well, we had a platoon, a battle axe that like a mace that we used to carry around because it was our company. Like
That's
we won our challenge. So we were we were Spartan platoon. So we had like and we had to, that's a great story actually.
God.
Bales used to line the platoon up and be like, "What is your profession?"
Oh,
And we'd be like,
no.
oh, Dad, like seriously. And he would be mad if you didn't do it. Like really upset if you didn't do it.
He would have been really mad
That
at
sounds
me.
terrible.
Yeah.
I'm cringing right now just thinking about it. It's been 10
False
years.
motivation is better than real motivation sometimes. But
He would have hated
crazy.
me.
Yeah. He would get upset about we didn't go to the party that they had before deployment. There's a pre-deployment party at a VFW. And he cornered me on the Monday afterwards and was like, "Hey brother, why didn't you show up? You know, we're gonna have a great time." And I was just like, "Oh yeah, Raj Sergeant, you know, I couldn't have a ride there and I don't have a car. So I had to have somebody drive me, and the person that's going to drive me would be, you know, possibly drinking. So I don't have anyone do a DUI. I really just didn't want to go, you know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to
You're
drink with Sergeant Bales, you know, but I stayed in my barracks room instead and slept, you know what I mean? Like we're about to deploy. I really don't want to hang out with you guys. You know what I mean? Like, so he's like, he started taking things, he took a personal slight, and I was like, "No, man, it's not like that at all. I mean, you've been the platoon sergeant for, you know, months. You've talked to me a few times, you know, mostly in a derogatory way. I'm pretty good with that. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm not going to hang out with you after that, you know?"
Yeah, well, so you guys go out and you chop down this tree that was used to mark the IED that hit the truck with the Navy guy the Navy guy lost his foot.
Right. So that mission was kind of crazy. We it was like, "Hey, all right, so we're gonna go recover the truck. The truck got taken to Zangabad, so we had to walk from our little VSP, like, I don't know, a mile to Zangabad." And so we're like, "All right, we'll leave out." So everybody else that was infantry was mounted, but because I had the Wolfhound, I was dismounted with the SF dudes. And we were in the front, and the vehicle was in the back for like Casevac or, you know, or any kind of like recovery, anything like that. So we're walking down the road to the Charlottetown Road towards Zangabad. And as we turn towards the schoolhouse, which is the open area between Zangabad and Charlottetown Road, we start getting mortared. We start taking mortar fire. So first thing we do is get down, you know, and again, I'm the only infantry dude that's dismounted. So all I do is look to see what the 18 Bravos are doing. And I can see at the front of the formation, everybody is down. And I'm like, okay, I need to get the fuck down. Okay. So get in the prone, look up, and everybody's up and running. And I'm like, okay, I need to get the hell up and run. And so like, I've got these wires from the Wolfhound jangling all over my head, smacking my helmet. I've got my 203 still in my tube, and I'm just running like 200 meters straight into Zangabad. The vehicle follows us in, and that's how we get to Zangabad. We get there, and the SF guys break off, and they go inside to get chow, because that's what, if you're SF and you just got mortared, that's what the hell you do, right? You go eat chow, recover, talk about it, and then go on with your KLE or whatever you were there for to talk to, you know, the actual conventional forces or whatever.
Well, I just want to interject here that if you're going to a big FOB, the first thing you do is you find the chow hall.
Yes.
Every time.
Especially
you always
if you've
go straight to the chow hall.
Yeah.
You go straight there, you rate it, and then you go off and do what you're supposed to do.
You shamelessly stuff muffins and honey buns in every pocket you got.
Absolutely.
And take energy drinks and everything.
Water.
Especially when it's
Exactly.
It's
You-
like bad.
SF or not, it is code.
Yeah.
exactly.
Unless you're going to like some little tiny cop, then it's a dick move to go raid their
Yeah.
whatever they
The
happen
chow
to
hall.
have as a defect. It's like, come on.
Fobbits can do with less. Okay, so
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the
Yeah.
mentality, and that was definitely adopted worldwide. So
yeah.
But
Like
you
that-
guys didn't get to do that, right? Because of Bales.
no, like I was again. Just got done running, like carrying all this stupid stuff that I think is stupid, but it's actually important, you know. I'm just like, it sucks
Sure.
carrying it, you know. And you know, I'm smoked, you know. I haven't done cardio, you know. I'm not running around the VSP all the time, you know what I mean? There's no treadmills. What are we doing? I'm smoked, you know. But I am lifting
Yeah.
weights, you know. So like,
Sure.
I'm like, I'm there, I'm smoked, and he's like, come on, we got to go get the truck. We got to go like to the truck, and I'm like, sorry, I'm about to go inside. I was about to get some, you know, food, you know, refuel because guess what? We just got mortar and we still have to go back, right? We're only
Yeah.
halfway here, and no, he kind of threw a little attitude, a little hissy fit with me, which happened a few times. I have this genuine ability to press people's buttons, so yeah, I don't know. I just was able to use it on Bales a couple times, and there's a couple funny anecdotes from that, but.
You were an older private too, weren't you?
Yeah, like I joined the Army at 24. I had worked
Yeah.
at an airport before, like in the freezing cold in Philadelphia. Like I had basically got kicked out of Villanova University already. Like I had been battle worn and tested by the time I joined the Army. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, like what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like,
That's one thing I've noticed with a lot of older recruits is like if you're older than like 22, 23 years old when you join the Army as enlisted,
Yeah.
and you've actually the NCOs don't like that. I ran into that a bunch. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
I was typically older than my NCOs at the beginning.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's a common thing.
I also have this incredible ability to be sensible at times. It's like this unknown, like common sense law that should apply that I think most of you all have too. But it seems like most of my leaders, at least in the early part of my career, did not possess that. Like they would just
That's
be
why we're
like,
no longer in the military.
yeah, like I'd be like, what? Like, why are we like mopping the motor pool when it's raining? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Stupid shit.
Like, what are we doing? Or we're lining up strikers. We used to draw chalk lines in the motor pool to like line up the strikers, and then it's Seattle, so it rains.
Yeah.
So the chalk goes away. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are
Bro,
we doing right now?
We raked
Like,
leaves with a broom that one time. We have pictures of it.
Yeah. Like, hey, these leaves are bad. It's like, yeah, Roger, sorry, we understand that. We're gonna get out there and hey, we'll handle it. It's like, all right,
Fine.
here's the equipment. It's like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Stupid shit.
here's some oranges and make some lemonade. It was like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you guys, you get in there. Bales is refusing to let you go in the chow hall. So you're obviously prickled.
Yeah.
What's the story in that in the tree then? How are those two associated with each other?
So I'm prickled, and I don't give a damn what we do on the way back at this point because I just want to go back and eat. So I walk to the very front of the formation once we strip the vehicle and leave. And mind you, this vehicle has been blown up. So it's like a vehicle that we had a guy get a Purple Heart from. Like he's like a part of the guys to like rescue the radios and like pull some of the wiring harnesses out that we may need and so forth, right? So I don't know, maybe some spiritual connection with it. But when we were on our way back, he decides so we happened to go by the tree that the same area exactly right where the vehicle got blown up. So we're on the way back and they decide, hey, we need to cut this tree down. Chong, you want to take it from here?
Was that the ODA that decided they wanted to cut the tree down?
Honestly, I don't know who made the decision. I really don't.
You get two idiots in a room, you never know what can happen. So I don't know. I don't think it was the ODA, but you never know.
It doesn't sound like an
It
ODA.
doesn't sound like
it doesn't-
ODA.
That's why I
Exactly.
asked.
That's why it was so weird. Like we never did anything like that. Why would we stop a tactical movement to? I mean, I understand that. Like, okay, I understand it on a patrol that makes sense, but we are literally going from one place and back. Like
Right.
that
Just to get
tree. Yeah, exactly. We could have hit down the first way on the way out, going somewhere else. It just didn't make sense to do it then and there. That's my point, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, man, we took some C4, blew it up. I think we wrapped around one of the RGs and dragged it, like the whatever 0.8 miles back to the VSP. And
Right.
Bales just had us. We had like 4 tomahawks. He just had us hatching at it all day. Probably took us
This
6
huge
hours
tree. Yeah.
to get it down to like where he was satisfied it was small enough. and we had this
Jesus.
small little burn pit. And when we were done, like we were walking back to the B hut, and me and one of the other saw gunners, we just saw him standing there smoking a cigar, looking into this burn pit as this tree was burning. And it was just one of the most bizarre scenes I've ever seen. And then lo and behold, probably like 6 hours later, he goes out and does his thing.
So I mean, it wasn't him sitting there enjoying a cigar and looking into enjoying the campfire. He was like, boring holes in that fire, premeditatedly, maybe.
It was a
thinking
bizarre,
about it.
bizarre sight.
This was 4 days before when you bombed the tree. It was a couple days before, right?
Nah, it was like the day before.
No, it was a couple days before, but it took us time to get to break the tree down and
okay.
get it to that part. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like because
So
we
he
So
were
we
was sitting
blew the
there
tree
just-
up a few days later, but
Yep.
by the time it was firewood was the night before.
Exactly. Because he was out there with it, like trying to get us to chop it down. But then, like, I remember I was like, I negotiated with him, which is one of the rare times. Like, I was like, hey, if I go work out right now, I don't want to miss my chance with my team leader, because me and him would work out all the time together at night, right? So I was like, I don't want to miss the opportunity to work out. And he was like, yeah, you're good. We'll start this again tomorrow. Like, just weird
okay.
stuff, like weird
Yeah.
stuff that, like, you're like, oh man, like this guy's really thinking about this tree. Like, this is kind of,
Yeah,
it's kind of OD, man.
He's-
It was just like
he's honed in on this tree, man.
yeah, like
yeah.
projecting all of these
Mhm.
things. And we have to be honest also that, like, when the first time that we found out the EOD guy lost his leg, when they called up the battle roster number, we thought it was somebody else. We thought it was one of the infantry dudes. So for us on the other end of it, hearing on the radio, we had already assumed that we had just lost one of our guys. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously we
Yeah.
did, but not one of our conventional force guys, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of like losing someone and then finding out like, oh, we actually did lose somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But in short, I mean, whatever the particularities of the situation, something in this dude broke. And so he ends the day sitting there smoking a cigar, staring into the abyss. So, guys, thanks for hopping on. We'll go ahead and wrap up part 1. For the audience, stay tuned and come back next week for part 2 as we pick it up where we leave off and continue this crazy, wacky, wild saga of this story and get the details from some dudes who were there, who saw some things that are really, really interesting and make it much more complex. So join us next week for Robert Bales part 2. Thanks, guys.